morning again to some of you. And this is the presentation, Just the Facts, ma'am. Homeschooling works. And I think I added something. It increases freedom. Just the facts. Homeschooling works and increases freedom. So when we talk about research on homeschooling, are we just talking about a few underground, fringe, kooky, nutty people? We were 30 years ago, but things have changed. It went from almost extinct in the 1970s, and we're not going back before that yet, to now, look at this. My latest estimate is 2,200,000 K-12 homeschool students in the United States, plus or minus. It's an estimate. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. I mean, what grows that fast besides fungi and bacteria? But this would be the good bacteria, right? In yogurt, like good bacteria. But that isn't tremendous. You know, any social science researcher would say that's incredible growth. No matter how you look at it, that's a lot of people homeschooling. In fact, and I mentioned this earlier, that for a long time when people thought of private or non-government schooling in America, you know, one of the big groups was Roman Catholic schools, right? This is now very similar to the number in Roman Catholic schools. So things have shifted quite a bit during the last 30 years in terms of private education in the United States. The growth is, like I said, tremendous. No matter how you look at it, homeschooling might be 25% of all private or non-government schools, and it's somewhere we think between 3 and 4% of all school-age children in America. And when I say school-age, I'm talking about kindergarten through 12th grade. But it's not just in the United States. It's growing and popping up everywhere. I mean, most of you know this. So here are just some examples. Canada's maybe 5 years behind the United States in the modern homeschool movement. United Kingdom, about the same age. Australia, New Zealand. In Australia, they never didn't have home-based education. It might have been under government control, some of it, because it's big. I mean, how many of you think Arizona's big? It's big. How many of you think Texas is big? Big. Of course, how many think Alaska's big? If you're from Texas. Sorry, Texas. 2.5 times as big. But Australia, huge. It's a long ways. So they've always had, or for a long time, they've had a program called distance education. Japan, homeschooling is growing in Japan now. Well, Germany, it's a little rough. Not a little rough, it's very rough. The Czech Republic, Hungary, Lithuania. I've got to visit a number of these places, and people are excited about homeschooling. South Korea, Mexico, Brazil. It's illegal there, but it's growing. Kind of hard to stop them. And next spring, we're going to have a global home education conference, the second one. The first one we had, I didn't design this, but you can guess why maybe somebody did this. We had in Germany, in Berlin, and the next one we're having in Brazil, right in the backyard of where you're not supposed to do it, right? But that's probably the way attorneys do things. Oh, man. So one of the first questions that people asked in doing research on homeschooling is, who home educates and who does not? I like this little cartoon. The lady standing there with 12 children under age 15 and the pollsters at the door, and she says, "No, I'm not in favor of homeschooling." She knows what's involved. She doesn't want to do that. So who home educates? I'm going to talk a little bit about basic demographics. And think about different variables you might wonder about. Like say, go ahead and yell something out, even though we're recording, it's fun to let people yell. What's some variable you're interested in? Income, and then what was that? Called, okay, so maybe this won't be a good idea. It's hard for me to hear. Income levels. Homeschool families, on average, are median income for families with children. I'm going to give you the averages, okay? How about parent education level? On average, homeschool parents have a little more formal education than the national average. Maybe 1 year of college, 1 year more. How about what? Where do they live geographically? Well, I'll tell you averages now. Urban, suburban, rural is relatively close now to the general population's distribution. What else? Somebody help me here. Number of children. That one's different. Has anybody gone out in the parking lot? Oh, there's no parking lot here. But you go to some homeschool conferences, there's a big parking lot at a church or at a smaller convention center. And what's out there? No. White 12-passenger, 15-passenger vans. Okay. If you only have a minivan, you should feel guilty. Okay. But on average, homeschool families, this is not going to sound real impressive, but think about it, have 3 to 4 children. But that is, 50 to 100% more than the national average. And yes, there are a lot of bigger families on average in the homeschool community. What's another variable? Race, ethnicity. Well, first of all, I have to say there's only one race because I am a Christian. But in terms of ethnicity and skin color, now it is still a little disproportionately white Anglo, but that's been changing over the last 10 years with blacks and Hispanics and Asians. It used to be very disproportionately white Anglo. What's another? Oh, okay, faith. Today, probably, these are rough estimates because you're not a captive audience. We can't do random samples necessarily. Researchers, we like random samples, but we just can't get you. We're going to have to get more black helicopters to fly over and do random sampling. But probably 75% would say they are Christians, as in Bible-believing Christians. Not just, I'm a Christian because I was born in America kind of Christian. What's another variable? Style of schooling. That's too complicated. There is some research on that, but it's kind of complicated, so I'm not going to try right now. Okay, yeah. So disproportionately, 2-parent families, disproportionately a dad working outside the home and the main income provider. Okay, so now let's go to some of the variety. There are plenty of families in which dad and mom barely made it out of high school. And there are plenty of families where mom and dad both have doctorates. Income, plenty of families who the government would consider poverty. There are plenty of families making under $30,000 per year. And there are plenty of families where they have $150,000, $200,000 per year. I already mentioned the ethnicity idea, and there are some large homeschool support groups I hear from dependable sources, 50, 100 families around Washington, D.C., all black families. And I remember 5 years ago, I was in New York City, in the city, went to two different support groups to speak, and white Anglos were the minority. So things have changed in that area too. What are some of the other things? The religious beliefs. Although maybe 75% would say, I'm a Christian, we strongly believe the Bible is the Word of God, we're born again. What are the other 25 to 30%? Agnostics, atheists, Muslims, Mormons, Jews, New Age, you name it, everything and anything are homeschooling. Wide variety. So there's a wide variety, and it's changing a lot. Another thing that we see happening in the research is an increasing number of people and percentages with, quote, special needs, unquote, children. And that could be, the terminology, changes over time. But it could be that they're talented and gifted. It could be they have learning disabilities, all those kinds of things. But that's also a quickly changing area. Then researchers got into, why do they home educate? And the research tells us a lot of different things.